Hello, everybody, and welcome to Riftbound Ramblings. I'm your host, Barrett, and today is September 1st of 2025, which is Labor Day in North America. So I was off of work, and I wanted to go ahead and get your tournament weekly recap out to everybody. This is officially week 7, as of having access to all of the cards of set 1 from Riftbound Origins. And yes, we have another China regional to go over. This one took place in Beijing this past weekend on the 30th and 31st. And yes, I know that this photo is from the first regional, but I really liked it, so I'm going to use it again. That being said, here is your event breakdown. Out of the 512 players that capped out this event, actually only 509 of them played, so I hope they do find those extra 3 players. We should be concerned about where they might be. But for the event, the biggest stories here are a flip-flop of Kaisa and Yi representation-wise on the most representative legend, which makes sense. Kaisa just won the last regional. Victor still having a strong support with 70 people registering them. And then, yes, we finally have set in their first appearance of a regional, and 20 people decided that it might be a good enough deck to play. Other than that, here's the rest of the legends and a very small representation across the board for those. But then we also have the top 64 breakdown. And there's a different amount of things that we need to talk about. Kaisa, yes. Overwhelming majority with 53% representation of top 64. Yi, of course, still doing a great job of combating those numbers. And once again, looking down at Victor, terrible conversion rate once again at 4%, the worst out of all of these legends that did end up converting. And even set two people converting off set off of 20 players still gives it a 10% conversion rate for its first regional appearance. And then yes, of course, the 5 people that decided to play Volibear, one of them still made it, so giving them a whopping 20% conversion. Other than that, I think the Aries, the Misfortunes, the Darius, the Teemo are fine, but it's really this conversation now of like, does Victor actually deserve to be in this kind of like top 3 of the format when it doesn't actually convert in top cuts? But it is still the Kaisa and Yi show, and so with that, we're going to go and dive into the top 8 deck lists. And yes, it is going to be a lot of Kaisa and Yi. Now, the biggest downside of grabbing these deck lists this early, and I didn't really wait for Piltover Archive to put it up on the main page, is not all of these are going to have the lists of, or the names of the players that played them, and I do hate that because I do want to give them representation and give them kudos where they deserve it. But we do have a couple of them, and 8th place is Gordon here with their Kaisa list, and the biggest thing to talk about on this deck is the main board and sideboard copies of Immortal Phoenix being the choice here, being a different priority over like extra copies of Lecturing Yordle, which is a very, very important piece when it comes to having a unit tank being relevant and also it drawing a card on play. So that's kind of the biggest choice. Also, the main board in Mundo, of course, but I'm seeing a lot more Kaisa lists lean towards that. And I'm a big fan of mainboarding the 2 copies of Retreat as well. Sideboard wise, I think it makes kind of sense. The Sprite Mothers, the Extra Darius, the Extra Watcher. But the biggest one to talk about too is Sky Splitter. I really am unsure if this is actually probably the right call. I would consider things like Singularity over this card personally, just because that one doesn't require you having extra might units on the board. Yes, it still is going to cost you quite a bit of your runes. This one to me only really works out if you have a big unit still on the board, which Kaisa is good at doing. And even then, it's only dealing 5 to a unit at a battlefield, whereas Singularity deals 6 and they're not a battlefield. So I just wonder. I wonder how this did for them. But congratulations, Gordon, to your 8th place finish. 7th place, we have another Kaisa list, and this is given to us by a member of the RxDAI team that I assume, but I just don't know exactly their username that they want to go by. But what we're going to see here is that this list is going to look very similar to another team member's list. And the main boards are fine except for like the 2 main boarded Mundos instead of just like 1. But we're not mainboarding cards like Retreat. And instead, they're in the sideboard along with Sprite Mother and Progress Day, Singularity, Unchecked Power, and a Time Warp. Time Warp, that's a weird one. Unchecked Power, I struggle to see how that card is better than a Cathian Rain. I just don't know if it is. I like the Singularity, and I'm sure the Progress Day works out against decks where you have the advantage that you can play it. But other than that, I think this Kaisa list looks just fine. Of course, this is one of the versions with only 1 copy of the champion unit in the entire deck, and it's the one that goes in your zone. But congratulations to the 7th place finish. In 6th place, I don't have a player name at all for this one, but it is a Master Yi deck, and the biggest things to note here, I think this one looks pretty standard, except for mainboarding one copy of Unyielding Spirit instead of just sideboarding them. I like that call personally. I think that is a strong decision to make with how popular Kaisa is. And then the sideboard decisions here being the body domain set, I think is really cool. I also like the Mask of the Foresight, or Mask of Foresight, really awesome. And then the sabotages in the sideboard kind of makes sense, honestly, for a lot of these Master Yi decks is what people are leaning towards. But I think this one looks pretty simple. The Paka Cub, by the way, mainboarded, that's a weird choice, but it's fine. I guess it's really that over, what, another copy of Snapvine? Because we're only playing two? I don't know. It makes sense. It's fine. Fifth place, we have another Master Yi deck. This one given to us by another RxD AI member, which is Rico1997. And this deck is a little different. And by different, I mean a lot different, because we are not mainboarding Kiana's. We are not even mainboarding or sideboarding any copies of Snapvine. We are playing Catalyst of the Aeons to help ramp us quickly to 8 energy, or 8 runes, so that we can play not just White Flame Protectors, but also Dead Bloom Predators, which is pretty awesome, to be honest. We're even playing the Find Your Center, which, you know, if you're falling behind, it costs less to play, and it draws cards and channels runes, of course. But this is a pretty cool list. I actually am interested to see how much more successful this would be comparatively to the other Master Yi decks that we've been finding. But it's more of a ramp orient to get to this 8. But the Kiana still exists. They're in the sideboard. And then, of course, the Unyielding Spirits. But congratulations, Rico, on your 5th place finish. Moving on to 4th place. Don't have a name for this one, but the biggest thing I want to talk about here is that this is kind of closer to that first Master Yi list that we just looked at. The sideboard a lot more straightforward here with all 3 copies of Unyielding Spirit and Sabotage, and the Rune Prisons. And this is even playing 1 copy of Rune Prison in the main board. And honestly, guys, when I watched a Master Yi deck on stream, whether the last event or this event, and somebody played a Rune Prison as the combat trick, I genuinely think this is the answer when it comes to like high impact. Once you're on a battlefield, Rune Prison just very much deters a lot of the decks on what they're trying to do to get through what you have, because they are going to still try and attack you and get like a trade. This just really messes with that math. And then it also helps you offensively as well. I think it's such a strong trick. You still have the on guards, you still have the disciplines. I'm not saying get rid of those, but I really like Rune Prison and like what it does for the Master Yi decks, which is why I think it's higher placed. I think this one had a good success because of it. But congratulations to the 4th place finish. Moving on to 3rd place, as we have another member of the RxD team. I don't know if this means that their name is iPotu or if it's just Potu. But this list, mainboard wise, is pretty much exactly the same as the last one we just saw in 7th place from the RxD member. The biggest difference here is the sideboards, where I think this deck is opting for another copy of Retreat versus something. I think it was a Singularity or something. I can't remember exactly what the card was. But the biggest thing here is, again, the unchecked power and the time warp. Still unsure about the time warp on when we're ever bringing that in, and I just, again, question if unchecked power is the correct call over the cards like Singularity. Yes, I know Singularity only picks 2. Unchecked power deals 12 to all things, but it's only at battlefields. I don't know. I wonder. I just wonder is all. But the main board obviously being very strong. It makes a lot of sense that this works out. And I like the Mundos, of course. And then your finalists, 2nd place, we have JHM sporting their Master Yi deck. And the biggest difference here is that this is kind of similar to the earlier Master Yi list we were just looking at. The White Flame Protectors, the Snapvines, the Kiana's Primal Strengths. But this one's mainboarding the 1 copy of Wielder of Water, a Sunlit Guardian. It makes sense here. And then in the sideboard, we are still playing at least 1 copy of Rune Prison. I'm telling you, I think it works, guys. And then all full 3 copies of Unyielding Spirit, opting for less Sabotages, only playing 2 of those, and a bonus Wielder of Water and a bonus White Flame Protector. This one to me is very straightforward. I think this deck looks very great. It makes sense and it does what it wants to do. But then, of course, your 1st place finish here from a Kaisa player, Sparkle, I believe is their name, as that's what it was on social media. And yeah, I mean, Mundo's still here, but only on the sideboard. Retreat's mainboarded here. Sprite Mother's mainboarded compared to a lot of the other decks we saw them being sideboarded. And then the sideboard here just being a lot of extra copies of things, of course. No mainboarded Acathian Reigns, only 2 in the side. The extra Cleave, extra Smokescreen, extra Mother in the sideboard. And then also actually playing 2 copies of Thermo Beam, which I can only imagine is for the Dazzling Aurora decks. So I think having a lot of respect onto those decks makes sense, and it's probably better for Swiss. Obviously, not so much for Top Cuts as we saw the decks that made it. But even though one main board progress day, I think looks really good. So congratulations here, Sparkle, on getting first place and taking down that Misfortune promo and bringing it home. But everybody, that's going to be it for the Week 7 recap of the tournaments. Of course, we still have two more regionals that I am at least aware of moving into the next 2 weeks. And we are now officially in September, which means next month, Riftbound officially releases in English. So I can only imagine we're going to start getting some more information very soon. So stay tuned for more videos. Thanks so much for watching this one. Give it a like if you like what I do for these tournament recaps. Of course, comment down below and tell me what you think of the current format, as we've now had two regionals, and we are really starting to see the dominance of Kaisa happen. Is this a Tier 0 format? I don't know. It doesn't feel like it to me. I just think a lot of people are going with what they believe is the strongest deck currently, and less people challenging that idea. But of course, subscribe to the channel so you never miss a video, and we'll see you all next time.